The following is intended for mature audiences.
Hello, Screamers. Before things get too messy around here, take a listen to this email I received. The email reads, no subject, Dear Ralph. I get a Dear Ralph this time. A few years ago, I was riding bikes with a friend near some train tracks that seemed abandoned. We used to mess around off the main path, cutting through little wooded spots by the rails. Anyway, that day, we noticed this smell, and it was this unbearably strong, sweet smell. My friend said she had seen a hand behind some metal plates. We got off our bikes and went to check, and that's when we saw him, a body, and you could tell he'd been there for a while. He looked swollen and discolored. Parts of him had started to rot, and obviously, based on how he looked, some small animals and bugs had already gotten to him. It's something you don't ever forget once you see it. I felt so dizzy in that moment. Like, I still remember his face. His eyes were closed, but his expression almost looked like he was in pain. We called the police, and they told us to wait there until they showed up. That wasn't easy because the smell was so strong, and it took a long time before anyone got there. Once they arrived, at some point, we think we overheard one of the cops tell another that it looked like it was a suicide. On top of having that sweet smell in my nose for days, I started having dreams about him. When I tell this story, I always joke and call them guilt mares. In some of them, I'd be walking in my neighborhood or back by the train tracks, and he'd be there, just standing, watching me. Sometimes he talked. He always sounds angry, telling me I disturbed him and ruined his resting place. It's really fucking crazy how our imagination creates shit like this. Like, I didn't know this guy, but he had a voice that my mind created. Some of the worst dreams were the ones where he told me I should kill myself, that I didn't belong here, and I'd only find peace if I joined him. Those were the bad nights. I know it's probably just my mind replaying everything I saw, but it stuck with me for a few years now. It's just so strange. I didn't know him, but I just feel so guilty. Anyway, thanks for letting me share.
Welcome to a world where darkness and mystery converge. Navigate the depths of horror and true crime and join a society beyond the ordinary, where buzzworthy topics, paranormal tales, and listener-submitted experiences blend into a realm of the unknown. You have crossed into a place where the unusual and the terrifying are just the beginning. My name is Ralph Anthony, and welcome to the Scream Society podcast.
Screamers of the Society, welcome to another season of the Scream Society, what I like to call my variety podcast from hell. I'm not canceled yet, can you believe that? It's me, your host and gay savior, Ralph Anthony, and if you've been listening and waiting patiently for episodes to release again, thank you. If you're new here, welcome to the chaos. And lately, it feels like nothing but chaos is everywhere. I mean, pop stars are getting engaged, causing a panic. Raw cookie CEOs are being bullied out of the closet. And I'll never understand the hype behind crumble cookies. I'm just saying. But you also have podcast hosts out here getting bullied into collabs. And it's a lot, okay? So with that, I just want to say, I hope you're all hanging in there. Because I sure am. And most importantly, season 2 is here, everyone. And I'm diving right back into murder, madness, and mayhem. And I can't believe it's been a full year since I rebranded this project. And the coolest part has been connecting with so many people from all over. whether that's on social media, through email, through the anonymous submission link. It's so cool. Now, just a quick rundown of how things go around here. The Scream Society, like I said, it's a variety show. Each episode, I'll pick a number of buzzworthy, insane, or downright creepy topics I find worth running my mouth on and put them in a segment I call Sinister Subjects. Then I'll follow up with a segment called Terrifying But True, which could be a true crime or a paranormal case that I do a deep dive on, and it has to be, well, terrifying. Then I'll follow with Ralph vs. the Rod, which is my playground to react and answer or even give advice on your questions or personal horror stories. But overall, I am excited just to see the show grow more than it has and to finally get some more guest hosts on here. Like I know I'm slacking in that department. It's all or nothing this season, right? Now we need to grow bigger, louder, and maybe even cult-like. And speaking of cults, merch. Scream-society.printify.me. I just revamped this whole shop, new designs, season 2 artwork on shirts, and yes, some thirst traps as well. It's pretty cozy. I think it's great quality, and some of you are already rocking it, which I appreciate so much. So if you're interested, I will definitely post a link in the description now. Okay, so much has happened, and it's only been about a month since we were last together. What's new, everyone? I hope everyone is truly doing amazing and thriving in this really difficult year. Okay, oh my God. So some of my friends created this. Actually, let me backtrack just a little bit. So over the break, I celebrated my birthday, and maybe I celebrated a little bit too hard, at least from what I can remember and what I've seen in photos and videos, because I blacked out, which is something I haven't done in, I would say, years. But okay, so I went back home for the weekend, for my birthday weekend. I stayed at my dad's place, and that's a detail that's important later. So on my actual birthday, which I think it was a Friday, all I remember is dinner with some friends, then a bar, and that's it. Apparently there was gay activity at a club where I went wild at a gay club, and then violence at a taco truck where I threw a water bottle and wasted precious tacos. And then I ended the night throwing up all over myself and my stepmom's Halloween pillows, and started crying to my dad. He said I wouldn't even look at him, that I was so ashamed and embarrassed, and a mess. I just remember waking up feeling like shit with a small chunk missing from my index finger knuckle, and I don't know how that happened. And who did I think I was, honestly? So where I was getting at, the following day, like I said, I woke up hungover, and this is actually why I'm sharing this story, but my friends actually had this whole horror cafe birthday celebration for me at her house with a sign of Ghostface holding a coffee that she hand drew and painted. And we even had teas and coffee and like little sub sandwiches, like an actual fucking cafe. It was so perfect. It was so thoughtful. It was so needed, especially with me being hungover. It was amazing. But also during that time, like I've said, I was in a pretty dark space mentally. So I think my soul just needed to be reminded of what truly matters in life and who's really there for you. But I think that headspace also has to do with why I probably drank so much and blacked out, which is not a healthy way of coping. Let me just be 100% clear there. It is not a healthy way of coping. Now, let's move on. And for the first time this season, let's dive into Sinister Subjects. I just finished the audiobook version of Your Favorite Scary Movie by Ashley Collins, which is essentially a deep dive into every film in the Scream franchise, including the upcoming movie Scream 7 that we're all excited about. At least diehard fans are. And I tuned in, yes, I said tuned in, because I like supporting horror creators and writers. Also, voice actor Roger L. Jackson, Ghostface, was hired to read the audiobook version, so how could I not get behind it? But without giving too much away, I really appreciated the level of detail here. Because sure, there's some details that, the know-it-all fans could just be like, this is old news, we've heard this before. But for me, there was quite a bit that I didn't know about. And I really liked how each film had a designated chapter to really shine and share all the behind the scenes scoop. And it was really cool. And some even had 2 chapters. But author Ashley Collins interviewed Neve Campbell, Kevin Williamson, and tons of people tied to the franchise, and just some of what you could expect to hear about all the drama behind Scream 3 and 4, how nobody wanted to invest in the original, and even the Melissa Barrera saga, which I feel had put the franchise in a very negative space. Ashley Collins made sure to incorporate every detail, even as much as she could, about Scream 7, which is what I wanted to talk about with you all. So one thing that stood out, Kevin Williamson mentioned that Neve wants to go back to what made the first movie so scary, less about bloody set pieces and more about suspense. Myself and some other fans obviously freaked out when we heard that. Like, what do you mean no blood? But if you really think about it, I don't think that's what she meant, because the original Scream was bloody. I mean, come on, Drew Barrymore's opening scene. But the original just wasn't about the gore. The tension was what made it so unforgettable compared to the last movie, which was a roller coaster ride, almost wall-to-wall action and just carnage, and it was nonstop. And I think shifting the focus back to the suspense could be what Scream needs to return to. And another big detail is Sydney's story arc. Like, Neve talked about how becoming a mom changes everything. Suddenly, Sydney isn't just trying to survive for herself. She's scared for her kids. She's scared for her husband. And that instantly raises the stakes here. I think Ghostface is going to probably be scarier to us because now Sydney has something even more precious to lose here. Because by the 5th film, she's this badass, unstoppable queen, right? But then Kevin Williamson went and said out loud that he believes Sydney deserves a happy ending after all she's been through. And yeah, while I 100% agree with him, and I've even seen other horror creators covering this, but while I agree with him, you really can't say that before the movie even comes out, because even if she does survive, you just kind of spoiled it, babe. I still agree and believe that character will never die. I mean, Neve has even come out and said so herself, but you kind of just spoiled it. And now I feel like that's going to be in the back of some of our minds while watching it. I'll forgive you this time. But moving quickly here, I don't want to be stuck on this topic too long, but the book also cleared up some Scream 5 confusion about Patrick Dempsey's Detective Mark Kincaid from Scream 3. And I rolled my eyes when I heard that Neve admitted that when his name was mentioned, she thought it was just a random name. Like, she didn't realize it was supposed to be that Mark Kincaid. Like, how are you not going to remember Mark Kincaid, Patrick Dempsey from Scream 3? Like, girl, still love you though, but you're playing around. So the studio had even tried to bring Patrick Dempsey back for Scream 7, and unfortunately that just didn't work out because of scheduling. Now, Neve dropped another interesting bit. She said parenting plays a big role in Sydney's story this time around. She said it's a big part of the choices her character makes, and I am hoping that doesn't mean that they'll turn her into some overprotective, 13 locks on the door type of mom, we've seen that in other horror films already. But I think if they keep it grounded and realistic, it could make Sydney's story even stronger here. Now, I'm so stoked for this film. I'm guessing we'll probably see a trailer drop sometime in October, maybe holiday season. And no shade or hate to other creators who report on rumors and tea pages that claim to know it all online, but we really need to chill on the clickbait videos and the podcast episodes and about just about knowing behind the scenes scoop, because I don't think they really know. Nobody really knows anything. But yeah, so far, everything I've read about Scream 7 has me super stoked. I'm excited. The suspense angle, Sydney's family, the callbacks, the returning cast. It feels like they're building a dream project for the fans. And if they can really deliver on bringing the scares and chase scenes back while honoring the franchise and Sydney's legacy, I think this could be the strongest sequel that we've seen in years. Anyway, your favorite scary movie is available where you get your books and audiobooks. Let's move on. From one horror franchise to the other, the Conjuring series is on its final film, at least for the main timeline. I'm sure we'll see more spin-offs though, but this is another franchise that's been having quite a bit of buzz around it and the real life lore and legacy that it's based on. I mean, we have the beautiful Vera Farmiga, who plays real-life alleged clairvoyant Lorraine Warren, who just came out and shared a photo of unexplained cross-shaped bruises that she received on her leg, while also mentioning that there have been a number of unexplained occurrences on set while filming the entire series over the years. However, Vera and co-star Patrick Wilson chose not to share what exactly happened, leaving myself and other netizens with a bloodlust for paranormal stories, wanting to know more. I mean, these films are based on alleged real-life cases involving demonic possession, hauntings, witchcraft, murder, the devil, and many people believe that when you, what's the word to simplify it? When you mess with shit like that, you can conjure up something evil or even find yourself in some sort of curse. I mean, let's look at the demonic track record here. You have Rosemary's Baby, which is a film about a woman impregnated by the devil. Director Roman Polanski lost his wife, Sharon Tate, when she was murdered by members from the cult led by Charles Manson. Then you have The Omen, great film, a film about the Antichrist. Star Gregory Peck and screenwriter David Seltzer had their flight struck by lightning on the way to filming, and the director Richard Donner's hotel was bombed. More notable ones here are Poltergeist, because over the course of the 3 films, cast members had died tragically. One was in 1982 when 22-year-old Dominique Dunn was strangled by her boyfriend shortly after the release of the first film. Then 6 years later, after the 3rd film was done filming, 12-year-old Heather O'Rourke died of septic shock before it was even released. Another instance was The Exorcist. Yes, that film. 9 people died during the shoot, and a fire destroyed large portions of the set. Now, I'd really love it if Vera and Patrick could come out with a book or something just to tell us about their spooky experiences. I mean, it can't stay buried forever, you know? Now, I am well aware of all the accusations that the real Ed and Lorraine Warren face, especially about the authenticity of their cases and experiences. I mean, the couple is dead, so they can't really come out and defend themselves, and perhaps that's a deep dive for another episode, but what I'm trying to wrap my head around here is, if that's the case, then all of those so-called haunted items in their museum are not cursed. They're totally fine to be around, correct? So Matt Rife is going to be okay then? Yes, we are going there. If you think for a second I wasn't going to touch on that story, you are dead wrong. And I was pissed too, because I had just wrapped season 1, so I couldn't cover this right away because I had some thoughts here. So like I was saying, comedian Matt Rife and TikTok ghost hunter Elton Castee officially bought the Warrens' house in Monroe, Connecticut. Yes, the actual one that inspired the one in the Conjuring movies. So they purchased that, and that means they're now in charge of the infamous occult museum and all of the creepy stuff inside of it, including the Annabelle doll. Now, they don't own the alleged haunted items, but they're essentially leasing them for the next 5 years because, according to the Warrens' son-in-law, Tony Spera, he clarified that the doll and other artifacts are still owned by him and his wife, Judy. But nonetheless, they are still fully responsible for the items during that 5-year time period. And what a big responsibility. And I had no idea Matt Rife was a horror girly either. And apparently, the plan is to eventually open the house for tours and even overnight stays so people can experience the haunted vibes themselves. I mean, they're really trying to spread that curse now, right? Wasn't Annabelle just on a world ghost hunting tour too? Like, I'm telling you, this whole universe has been very loud in 2025. Like the Conjuring universe is thriving, but in my opinion, this is definitely random, and I do think the timing is pretty eerie too. I mean, the last caretaker of Annabelle, Dan Rivera, sadly passed away suddenly from natural causes while on tour with the doll back in July. So when he's not collaborating with and getting my favorite makeup brand boycotted or making insensitive domestic violence jokes, I guess Matt Rife will be doing Annabelle tours. Okay, so let me just say this up front. I see Sylvia Browne on my Instagram and TikTok feeds constantly. Anyone else? I'm talking at least 5 times a day, some random clip of hers pops up and I stop to watch every single one, and I can't help it. The raspy smoker's voice, the platinum blonde hair, the confidence, and in a sense, rudeness she has, saying the absolute just wildest things is just... she's internet gold, okay? But if you don't really know who Sylvia Browne was back in the 90s and early 2000s, Sylvia was the sidekick on TV. She wasn't just some fringe figure doing small readings. She was like mainstream famous. I remember she was a regular on the Montel Williams show that I would watch with my grandma. She even popped up on Larry King Live, and she was just a staple on late night radio shows, like one of my faves and another inspo for this podcast, Coast to Coast AM, and she built this whole empire out of it too, like books that hit bestseller lists, $750 phone consultations. What the fuck? She booked cruises where fans could literally pay thousands to hang out with her, and she even had her own church. There were wait lists years long just to talk to her. She was huge. But here's the thing, the predictions. That's where things start to get messy here, because she was wrong a lot. Not in like a cute, like horoscope level wrong. Like, I mean, she was devastatingly, tragically wrong, because we have to talk about this. And I know this isn't technically a current sinister subject, but her readings are going viral, and I need to look into this girl. So one of the most infamous moments happened on Montel when the mother of Amanda Berry, who was missing at the time, came on the show desperate for answers. Sylvia looked her dead in the eye and said, "She's not alive, honey." Actually, Amanda Berry was very much alive. She had been kidnapped and held captive for years before she finally escaped in 2013. Sadly, though, Amanda's mom died before that rescue ever happened, believing her daughter was gone because of Sylvia. And that wasn't just a one-off here. Sylvia told another family their little girl had been taken to Japan and sold into slavery. The place Sylvia named didn't even exist. And years later, the girl's remains were unfortunately found back in Texas. She told a different mother that her missing daughter was alive, stripping in Hollywood. Nope, the girl had already been dead for years, and her body had been identified in San Diego, California. And I'm not making light of the people who lost their lives here, okay? I'm laughing at someone who was fooling and lying to desperate people and the shit she would come up with. I'm sorry. It's just wait, because one of my favorite clips is of a girl with social anxiety who, just take a listen.
A question for Sylvia.
I have a really bad problem with social anxiety. I can't freak out. I can't.
You're doing pretty good now. But let me tell you where this comes from. You were accused of being a witch in a past life. You were put in a circle and you had to name 2 people so that supposedly you wouldn't die. Except they didn't tell you that. They just said, tell us 2 people. You named 2 people and all 3 of you were hung. So no wonder you have social anxiety.
Thank you.
Are you serious? Like, are you serious?
So if you have social anxiety, chances are that in a past life you were accused of being a witch. Like, How are people paying her thousands of dollars to basically be lied to? Now, apparently not all her predictions were unhinged or that far off, because flash forward to the pandemic, remember baby girl COVID, Sylvia had been gone for years by 2020. She passed away in 2013 at age 77, which she even predicted her own death wrong. She said she would die at the age of 88. Back to COVID. In her 2008 book, End of Days, she wrote, in around 2020, a severe pneumonia-like illness will spread throughout the globe, attacking the lungs and the bronchial tubes, resisting all known treatments. Almost more baffling than the illness itself will be the fact that it will suddenly vanish as quickly as it arrived, attack again 10 years later, and then disappear completely. I'd say that prediction is about only half correct. And I actually remember this going viral then. People were calling her prophetic, and even Kim Kardashian shared it. And I think that's what made it go viral. But the internet is fucking wild. It's fucking wild. Because more than a decade after her death, Sylvia lives on in these clips and memes. And while she was fooling around with people's lives, and I'm not laughing at that, but I hate to say it, but the way she fooled and trolled and scammed so many people is a little iconic. It's popping up on my timeline nonstop, and honestly, I don't even mind, because it's so funny to watch, and I'll watch every single one every single time. Let's move on. This episode is going to take a shift for this final subject here. And I'd like to think this country, which has so much pride, so patriotic, and is so worried about the safety of children, right? Protect kids, can't get it together when it comes to gun violence, right? Can't get it together when it comes to what we want to be outraged about. It could be anyone else, but when trans gets thrown around, it's, oh my God, gun violence from trans people. The Wi-Fi password community are coming for our children. So let's talk about it. As I'm sure most of you have heard about what happened in Minneapolis. And just to recap here, on the morning of August 27th, 2025, there was a mass shooting at the Church of the Annunciation during a school-wide mass. This is a Catholic school in Southwest Minneapolis that's been around forever, over 100 years. It's a place where kids from pre-K through 8th grade go. So we're talking little ones all the way up to middle schoolers here. Now, that morning, a shooter showed up dressed in black, fired into the church through stained glass windows, and even barricaded some of the doors so people couldn't easily escape. And the whole thing lasted about 2 minutes, but caused absolute chaos. And by the end of it, 3 people were dead, including the shooter themselves, and 18 others were injured. Now, tragically, 2 of the victims were just kids, just 8 and 10 years old. So police later found that the shooter had brought multiple weapons, a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol, and had left behind over 100 shell casings. Some of the guns even had hateful messages written on them, referencing racism, anti-Semitism, anti-Catholic hate, and the names of past mass shooters. So here's the thing. The shooter was identified as 23-year-old Robin Westman, who grew up nearby and even went to that same school as a child. They were also transgender, and I want to pause right there, because we know how this goes. People, and I'm saying people aiming at a certain administration and their followers. So people immediately jump online and try to turn something like this into an excuse to demonize all trans people, to demonize the alphabet community, as they would call it. And that's not only unfair, it's so dangerous. The actions of one violent individual do not represent an entire community, period. How many straight mass shooters have we had? How many straight white men shooters have we had? The Gun Violence Archive estimated in late 2024 that 0.11% of known mass shooting suspects over the past decade were transgender. And in 2025, it's only gone up to 0.13%, while straight males, 98%, straight white males, 57%. And what we should be talking about is the bigger picture. Robin Westman legally purchased their guns recently, had no criminal record, and put out these really disturbing videos online before the attack. Videos that talked about suicide, violent thoughts, and hatred. This is where the accountability has to land on the systems that allowed someone clearly spiraling to buy deadly weapons with ease, and on the culture that keeps glorifying or recycling mass shooter names like there's something to aspire to. And again, from my perspective, I want everyone held accountable, because when we start picking and choosing when to be outraged, that's only causing more division, which I'm convinced is what the higher elites want. Like, with all that tired ass Epstein file shit, I bet if your Democrat President Bill Clinton is on there, you're gonna look the other way. No. Burn them all, please. Same thing goes for something as extreme and tragic as a mass shooting. Trans, gay, straight, bisexual, I don't care. Someone committed this disgusting crime, someone murdered children, all should be treated and punished the same. Now, the city and faith community responded quickly with vigils, prayer services, even messages from the Vatican. Thousands of people came together to mourn this tragedy. The president ordered flags at half-staff nationwide. Advocacy groups like Moms Demand Action, Sandy Hook Promise, and Giffords all put out statements calling for stronger gun laws. Basically, people are tired of thoughts and prayers without action. Now, officials are investigating this as both domestic terrorism and an anti-Catholic hate crime. And honestly, when you really look at the evidence, the hateful writing on the guns, the deliberate targeting of a church full of children, it's hard to really argue otherwise. But again, we've got to hold two truths at once here. Robin Westman chose to carry out this act of violence. That's on them, right? But we can't let that fuel more hate against trans people who are already facing violence and discrimination every day and have nothing to do with this incident. This was about hate. This was about mental health struggles. This was about easy to access deadly weapons. This is about broken systems that let all of this collide in the worst way possible. That's where our outrage should go. Not towards scapegoating innocent people, but toward fixing the conditions that keep making mass shootings a regular part of American life. Let's take a break.
Are you tired of the same old true crime podcasts? Does it seem like horror podcasts are endless? Not sure which one to choose? Well, I've got you covered.
All right, can we stop? Hi, my name's Ralph, and I'll be your guide through what I like to call a variety show straight from hell. Welcome to the Scream Society. From true crime, crazy extremists, conspiracy theories, to the wildest buzzworthy topics, maybe some spine-tingling horror stories and supernatural phenomena to darken your day. I dissect it all and tell it like it is. The Scream Society. Dare to be a part of the show? Share your personal horror stories and paranormal experiences at beacons.ai/The Scream Society. Join the society and follow on Instagram and TikTok at Scream Society Podcast. The Scream Society. Available on all podcast platforms. We are back and getting into Terrifying But True, the segment where I choose one random true crime or paranormal case and do a deep dive on it. This episode, I'm talking about the disappearance and murder of Kristin Smart. This case took decades to finally see justice, and even then, like we see with so many other cases, it's complicated, messy, and frustrating. So let's start at the beginning here. When the unthinkable becomes reality, we find ourselves questioning everything, as some stories are too terrifying but true. Kristin Denise Smart was born on February 20th, 1977 in Augsburg, West Germany. Her parents, Stan and Denise, were teachers for kids of U.S. military families overseas. Eventually, the family settled in Stockton, California, where Kristin grew up with one brother and one sister. She went to Lincoln High School, graduated in 1995, and honestly, she was just your normal young woman. She loved adventure. She worked as a lifeguard and camp counselor in Hawaii and was excited to start college life. So that fall, Kristin enrolled in Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, which is in California. And like a lot of first-year students, she was still figuring things out. New town, new people, new experiences. Fast forward to Memorial Day weekend, May 24th, 1996, Kristin decides to go to an off-campus birthday party. She actually goes by herself because her friend who was supposed to join her bailed early. And Kristin didn't really know many people at this party, but she went anyway. Now, at first, it seemed as if Kristin had been having too much fun that night because by around 2 a.m., she was seen passed out on a lawn near the party. Two fellow students, Cheryl Anderson and Tim Davis, spot her and helped her up. They start to walk her back toward her dorm, and at that moment, another student joins them, Paul Flores. Now, Paul had a bit of a reputation on campus. He was known as Chester the Molester. And this was probably due to the fact that he was creepy, socially awkward, gave people bad vibes. But that night, he tells the group, "Hey, I'll get Kristin home. My dorm is closer anyway." And Cheryl and Tim peel off one by one, leaving Kristin alone with Paul. And that right there, that was the last time anyone ever seen her alive. Because soon after, she was reported missing, and Paul told police later that he walked her as far as his dorm, Santa Lucia Hall, and then supposedly let her go on her own to her dorm, which makes no sense. She was clearly too intoxicated to even stand on her own earlier, but we're supposed to believe he just let her wander off alone at 2 a.m. Not buying it. Now, the worst part, the campus police really dropped the ball here so hard because when Kristin didn't show up later, they assumed she'd gone away for the weekend or had just taken off. They didn't even report her missing to the San Luis Obispo Sheriff's Department until a week later. A week. Meanwhile, Kristin's parents were calling and panicking. An entire week just lost. Searches began, but nothing solid turned up. Dogs, horseback teams, ground-penetrating radar, nothing. And for years, it was just silence. And as for Paul Flores, he lawyered up so fast, refused to answer any questions, and basically lived his life while Kristin's family was pretty much stuck in limbo. Now, at one point, an earring that possibly belonged to Kristin was found at Paul's mom's house by a tenant, but police lost it. Like it was never even logged properly into evidence. Like imagine how crushing and devastating that had to have been for her family, for her parents. And there were other rumors that had popped up over the years, like when Laci Peterson went missing in 2002. And I have yet to cover that case, which was such a moment in time as far as the news creating an event out of the search. But anyway, where I was going is some people wondered if Laci Peterson's husband, Scott Peterson, had something to do with Kristin as well, since he had also went to Cal Poly. However, police ruled that out quickly. So by 2002, Kristin was officially declared legally dead, even though her body was never found. Her family also tried filing civil suits against Paul, but he always pled the fifth and nothing really stuck with that. So for nearly 2 decades, it felt like this case was cold. Then came 2019. Independent podcaster Chris Lambert started his series Your Own Backyard, which dives deep into Kristin's case. It blew up, millions of downloads, tons of renewed attention. His work brought forward new witnesses and put Kristin's story back into the spotlight. Now, around the same time, law enforcement really started pushing harder. In 2020, police searched Paul's home in San Pedro, California, and found some really disturbing things, like date rape drugs and tapes of Paul assaulting unconscious women. So yeah, this guy was not some misunderstood college kid. He was a dangerous animal. And by April 2021, things finally broke open. Paul Flores was arrested for Kristin's murder, and his dad, Ruben Flores, was arrested for helping cover it up. Investigators believed Kristin's body had at one point been buried under Ruben's deck, but was later moved. The trial began in 2022, moved to Monterey County for fairness, and on October 18th, 2022, a jury found Paul Flores guilty of first-degree murder. His father, Ruben, though, was acquitted of being an accessory. Then in March 2023, Paul was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. And because karma has a way of catching up, in August 2023, Paul was attacked in prison by his cellmate. Now, even though justice finally came, Kristin's body has still never been recovered. Her parents, Stan and Denise, are still waiting to bring their daughter home. And one good thing to come out of this tragedy is the Kristin Smart Campus Security Act, which was passed back in 1998. And that requires public colleges in California to work directly with local police on serious crimes like missing students, all of that. Because back in 96, if the campus police had taken things seriously from the start, maybe this story would have ended a lot differently. And now, let's dive into Ralph vs. the Rot, where I take on your questions and submissions and do my best to give you a fair perspective and a little advice. As always, if you would like to share an experience of yours, share something you find creepy or interesting, or simply want to ask me a question, send an email to screamsocietypodcast@gmail.com or head on over to beacons.ai/the Scream Society and click on the Society submissions link. Remember, everything always remains anonymous. At the start of this episode, I opened with what I think is one of the most uncomfortable and devastating experiences that has ever been shared here. The email was an experience sent in taking place a few years ago. Someone was biking with a friend when they came across a decomposed body. The strong, sweet smell led them to the discovery, and it was clear the man had been there for some time. They called for help and later learned it had been a suicide, allegedly. And understandably so, the experience stayed with them, and in the time after, they began having unsettling dreams, what they call guilt mares. In these dreams, the man would appear watching them, sometimes speaking in an angry voice their mind had invented. The worst dreams involved him telling them to take their own life. Now, I think one of the most difficult parts of this was the detail about the body smelling extremely sweet. And when I first opened this one, my jaw was on the floor. And I also got really curious about it. And it turns out this is not as uncommon as you might think, stumbling across a deceased body. I've never smelled anything like that before, nor would I have any interest to. But the sweet smell pretty much happens because during the decomposition, the body gives off certain chemicals. Some of them can smell a little fruity or sickly sweet, if you will. And normally the smell of decomposition is rotten and nauseating. But when those sweeter compounds mix in, it creates this weird, almost sweet but rotten odor, kind of like spoiled fruit, which is how I've seen some people describe it. Now, I am no medical expert here, but with everything that you have said in the email, I strongly recommend seeking professional help if the incident is still affecting you this badly. Nightmares like that, I'm sure, couldn't be shaken off so easily, and it's a really traumatic experience. But also, I do want to focus on some positive here, because what I got from this is it shows that you have a good soul for being empathetic towards someone you didn't even know who was probably struggling themselves. This one was tough. Thank you for sharing. And friends, like, we have to take mental health seriously. And I know right now with current political administrations, they're shutting down mental health services in certain areas, but I'll definitely do my best to link some resources in the episode description. Let's move on. I've got a couple more questions here that I would like to get to, and I enjoy all of them. Can I just say, I enjoy everything you guys send in, but there are types of questions that I absolutely love getting, and I have a couple here that I picked out for this episode. And I just like love when people send me complex questions like that, kind of make my back sweat, that give me that ass crack sweat. You know what I'm talking about? So thank you. I've been listening to older episodes before I get into newer ones. I'm enjoying everything, by the way, but I want to stir something up. Tell me, what makes your take on all of the topics you choose different from what's already out there? Like I said, ass crack sweat. Did it just get hot in here? I don't even know how to answer this. I don't really think I'm the only one with these types of views, but what I want to urge people to really do is to really take a step back and understand what they're being angry about, what they're getting angry about. And at least when it comes to social and political issues, I think I'm a fair guy, right? I'm pretty fair. I love to look at situations from just all angles on this podcast. In my personal life, I'm a fucking mess. I'm still working on that. And we really have to try to be logical and rational and not always jump on the cancel bandwagon. I think I just want to get a different way of thinking out to whoever will listen and hopefully encourage change for a more inclusive society that I think we've been working so hard toward, which is why I also call out members of my community. Also, I just love to be able to talk about shit that I love and really give my take on horror and true crime and sometimes, like, I like to have a little fun at shit going on, because, like, you really can't make up what's going on in our world, like, as far as pop culture goes. Like, it is an absolute circus out there, so why not poke fun at that too? And as some would say, this podcast is messy, but I say it's an experience. Next question. Am I a bad guy? I get super cringed out or find it so cheesy when my boyfriend takes flowers to family members that have passed away, and even sometimes starts conversation with the grass. He also at times starts taking shots with the gravesite. You are such a dick. I think you should allow him to express his grief however he pleases. Like, this is actually pretty fucked up. I can't. I'm done. Don't be a dick. Thank you to everyone who submitted. If you didn't hear your submission in this episode, don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to say it all in the end credits, but again, please help support the podcast by checking out the merch, review, rate, share with a friend. And lastly, as always, thank you for listening, Screamers, and always remember to let your partners grieve without judgment. And until next time, I will scare you on the next one. You are such a dick.
Thank you for tuning into the Scream Society podcast, hosted, written, produced, and edited by yours truly, Ralph Anthony. Help the society grow by subscribing on your favorite platform and leave a rating and review. I always strive for 5s. Have a horror or paranormal experience? Want me to answer your questions on the show? Submit to beacons.ai/The Scream Society. Connect with the podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Scream Society Podcast. And until next time, I'll scare you on the next episode.